who they actually are is right in the name. It shouldn't be some crazy enigma or some cryptologic code that needs breaking. The Legion of the Damned is one of the Lost Legions. There are a lot of theories thrown around, and people have claimed to know everything there is to know about their origins for close to 40 years now. But since GW has never flat out explicitly said who the Legion of the Damned is, and we have so little to go by, we have to take the little they've given us at face value. The distinction between chapters and legions is something Games Workshop has taken very seriously over the years. They've gone out of their way to differentiate the great legions of the Horus Heresy era, 30K, from their modern 40K chapter counterparts to such a degree that we are constantly reminded in Black Library novels that the Imperial Fists chapter is not the same as the Imperial Fists Legion. For example, you can literally just substitute the fists with any other chapter at all, and you get my point. So the fact that GW have named them the Legion of the Damned proves to me that they aren't the Firehawks or some other chapter of Space Marines that suffered a tragic fate, were betrayed, lost, deemed hereticus excommunicatus, or suffered from some warp shenanigans. No, this enigmatic group of Space Marines is in fact either the 2nd or the 11th Legion. The sons of one of the 2 Primarchs who were scrubbed from history entirely, those whose names are not to be spoken, nor even remembered. While the 2nd and 11th Legions are often simply referred to as the Lost Legions, that is more of how they are referred to in the modern lore. I remember that during the earlier editions of Warhammer 40K, they were called the Lost and the Damned. One legion was considered lost, and one legion was considered damned. What we do know about the 2nd and 11th is that the legions themselves were not deemed unworthy by the Emperor. Whatever they did, or whatever occurred to them that made it necessary to scrub them from history, was only the fault of their respective Primarchs. That may explain why the Legion of the Damned is a bunch of demons, yet they are still completely and utterly loyal to the Emperor and to humanity. The Firehawks may have been deserving of the Emperor escalating them to the level of Loyalist warp demons who appear only when humanity is facing its most desperate and hopeless battles, often turning the tide and delivering a Loyalist victory, only to disappear as mysteriously as they arrived. But even as we entertain this notion, it becomes clear that there is something more going on. Originally, Games Workshop left the 2nd and 11th Legions as blank canvases for players to render their own unique visions upon. It was to encourage new players to come up with their own lore and color schemes and conversions. But that was the old Games Workshop, back when they encouraged us to use our imaginations and provided tutorials on how to scratch build terrain and convert miniatures into unique works of art. They still use that as an old excuse for never fleshing out the 2nd and the 11th in the lore. But I have a bone to pick with them, as every time I have invented backgrounds for my own unique Space Marine chapter, I name them something like the Storm Giants or something cool like that, and they literally add a chapter with that name into the lore, along with a color scheme, etc. This has happened so many times now, and even with other armies that I feel GW has given my imagination the middle finger and told me to just paint Dark Angels or whatever in their own not-so-subtle way. And that is why the Legion of the Damned are in limbo as far as the lore goes. They haven't gotten new models for the tabletop in decades, and nobody has spent the time to kit bash and convert an army of the 2nd or the 11th that I have ever seen. And I've been into this game since Rogue Trader came out in 1987. Yet GW clings to this excuse of why they'll never tell us anything in the lore about those legions. Yeah, sure, GW. They're there in case I want to use my imagination. Guess what, Games Workshop? Thanks to you, I don't have an imagination. But I can plainly see the few breadcrumbs they've left for me. Yes, the Legion of the Damned are Loyalist demons and have been warp entities since before the Emperor set off on the Great Crusade. And I, for one, am surprised that nothing is being done about this as far as models and lore go, as it would literally make GW millions of dollars just to shine a little bit of light down this rabbit hole.